Hello, everyone. We're here once again with the chance to interview a legislator in our legislature. And today it's Mike Motschenbacher. He is a representative in the House. And why don't you tell us a little bit about who you represent and when you started and all that kind of good stuff?
Well, 2023 session was my first session. I got elected back in 2022 for the first time. I represent District 47, which is in Northwest Bismarck here. And yeah, we're just really looking forward to the next session, though.
Yeah. Why don't we start off actually? Why don't you tell the audience here a little bit about yourself on a personal
Okay.
basis? Your family and all that kind of good stuff.
I am married to my wonderful wife, Buffy. We've been married for nearly 24 years. Just in a couple weeks here, we'll be celebrating our 24th year anniversary. I have four wonderful kids. Carson is age 20. He's going to be 21 here in about 3 or 4 weeks. And uh, Molly is 18 and going to be headed off to Wahpeton, NDSCS this fall. And then Emily is 17, 16. I think she's 16.
This isn't a quiz.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay. And Zach, my little guy, who's not so little, he's 13 years old, but he's uh, just hitting 6 foot tall right now.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, just blessed to have them. My day job, I'm the executive director for the North Dakota Gaming Alliance, which is a trade association for all the charitable gaming in the state of North Dakota. And prior to that, during COVID, I had a little bit of a midlife crisis and had to switch careers, and that's why I'm in the gaming industry now. But prior to that, I spent nearly 30 years in the hospitality industry, managing the expressway and suites here in town, and that was a really, really rewarding career. And I miss it, but I'm happy where I'm at now.
Yeah. Well, good. We're glad you're here. We're very happy that he's part of the legislature, and I can truly say he votes the right way on nearly everything.
I think I missed one.
Yeah, he missed one vote, but we still love him. Um, so, why did you want to become a legislator? Because, as you now know, it's just a pile of work, and it's very intense for 4 months. This is not for the faint at heart. So, what prompted you to do this?
Well, I've been involved in politics since way back in the year 2000, and that's when I worked a little bit with Deborah Meyer team in District 32 when they won their first election. And after that, I really liked the watching the process, and I paid a lot more attention back then and such. And over the years, I made a decision that I can either just sit back on the sidelines and toss grenades every once in a while, which of course wasn't very effective, or I could actually get involved. So it was in 2005 when I moved into District 47, and right away contacted the district chairman up there for the Republican Party and asked if I could help and what I can do and get involved. And they were gracious and invited me in, and I just did as much work as I could, for the district over the years. And then in 2020, well, it was right before the election, and that's when Representative Kaiser, who represented our district for 20 plus years, unfortunately passed away. And there was that left an opening in the legislature. And so I talked to, Carl Limke, the chairman of District 47, and said, hey, my current job will allow this. My family just gave me the blessing here recently. I talked to them about it, and I would like to run for the seat. And so the rest is history from there.
Oh, great! That's fabulous. So, you talked about hospitality industry and gaming, and how has that prepared you for being in the legislature? Either with specific knowledge of the industry or just in general decision making, those kind of things.
Well, especially in the hospitality industry, what I really learned was how difficult overregulation by government is detrimental to business. And, sure, you have bad players in every industry, and you're going to have that. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. But 99% of the people out there just want to do the right thing. They want to go, provide a good service or a good product for their customers. But the regulation seems to always try to just to be to cut out the bad guys but it also affects the 99% of the people that are just trying to do the right thing. And I saw that over and over and over and over for years. And I like this, we've got to do something different. We've got to cut regulation and get the government out of our businesses as much as possible. So that really, was a motivating factor. When I came into the legislature, one of the promises I made, and I have a uh, very conservative district that I come from. Lots and lots of business owners and business managers in that district, and I promised them that I would be a warrior for small business, and I think I've done an okay job with that. I got some pretty good ratings, from the chambers and such. So I think I did okay on that. But so yeah, that was another one of the motivating factors that made me run, and I'm glad I did.
Excellent. So let's shift a little bit. And obviously, we're North Dakota Family Alliance, we're a Christian organization. So we're always interested in how your faith enters the legislative process, because there are those who say your faith should never be involved at all in the legislative process, which to us, of course, seems ridiculous because it's part of who you are. So, how does your faith, your background, factor into decisions, how you work with others, and so on?
Well, there was several bills where I would have constituents or non-constituents, just people with concerns about how I was going to vote on these bills, and there was sometimes that I was just straightforward and honest. Well, I was always straightforward and honest, but in these situations, I would just say that for you to tell me to vote that way, to me that means I'm denying God. And I said that we just have a short life here. And if I am lucky enough to be standing in front of the pearly gates and, God asked me, why did you vote this way when you were put in a position to make a difference? Why did you vote this way? And why did you deny me? And, I don't want that on my record. When I'm knocking on the doors of heaven. So I did use, my conscience. And there was times I would say a quick 10-second prayer before I voted, just because I was torn on how I should vote on this. And I made sure that I was representing the constituency that I, represent, but also wanted to make sure that it served God also.
Excellent. No, that's fabulous. Glad we have folks like you in the legislature that use your faith as the foundation for the decisions that you make. That's really great. So, what's been your favorite part of being a legislator? You can do more than one thing if you want.
Well, there were several. I've always been a strategist. Just my whole life. Working on strategies. How do I get from point A to point Z effectively? And um, I really learned during my first legislative session how important strategy is. You know, I've asked people before, what do you need to get a bill passed? And they'll say, well, you need to have a good bill. You need to have people on your side. I said, no. The only thing you need is 48 votes in the House and 24 votes in the Senate. So how do you get to that number? And so you really have to work together with people, and you have to make friendships, and you have to, uh, you can't make sure you get labeled as whatever it is. So and you have to gain trust. I mean that's the most important thing. I got a lot of advice from legislators and previous legislators before I sat in the chambership for the first time. And one thing that struck me, and he told me this is probably the most important thing I'll tell you, is never lie to another legislator. They'll respect you if you disagree with them, but do not tell them one thing and then do another. So I always try to be, forthcoming, and I am very transparent, not only with the taxpayers and the constituency, but I also was very transparent in how I felt with the legislators. So I think that was important. Something I really enjoyed was a strategy. Just meeting the people. I cannot believe how many emails, you know, I, I would, well, you're sitting in Representative Vetter's chair, and I would always look over at Vetter and say, how many emails did you get from constituents today? He goes, two. Like, I have 170. What is the difference between so I had a very active constituency, which I really enjoyed, because then I had a good idea of where the people stood on a lot of the issues in the legislature. So just having those conversations with our constituents was fantastic. Even before I got elected, just knocking on doors and meeting people and asking questions. I came from a district, like I said, it's pretty conservative, so I didn't get the door slammed in my face very much, but uh, not, there were a couple times, not as often as some others, I think. But the people were very open and welcoming and willing to talk issues, and I really enjoyed that. So those are just a few. Thinking maybe I made a difference after the session was gavelled out, like hoping that I made a little bit of a difference, even if it's just minuscule, just moving the needle in the right direction on issues and such like that. So very rewarding. I really liked every aspect of it.
So for those of you watching, I want to thank you for sending those emails to Mike. We help facilitate it. So Mike, you can come to us and be mad at us, but don't be mad at them. So flipping that coin, what was the hardest part of being a legislator?
The hardest part that I would say was determining when people were lobbying you on issues, determining whether they're giving you facts or fiction. Mm-hmm. And the lobbyists typically are fantastic to work with, and they're trying to educate you and give you information, and they were great. But there were several bills that came out where, after doing some research, I just totally busted them. They were completely lying. And then I saw emails and phone calls and text messages that they were sending other people that were making statements that were completely untrue about what some of the bills did. And that upset me.
Yeah.
And, if you want to, try to get someone to vote your way or pressure a legislator to vote their way, that's fine. That's part of the process. But when you're telling them misinformation to get, I had some fantastic friends of mine that would call me and like, what are you doing? Why are you voting this way? Like, well, what's the problem with it? And they would tell me, well, this is what I got in this. And I did, no, that's not true at all. I would send them the bill, and you show me in this bill where it says what they're telling you it's going to do. So, and that was difficult, and it was upsetting to see that how some people were dishonest and using that to try to sway votes. So, but if I ever had anything in question, they always say if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So if I ever had anything in question, I would do extensive research and just to make sure. And I would call people like, you and say, hey, here's what's being told. I mean, can you show me some facts on this? And you were always such a great resource to go to.
Thank you.
So that, like I said, a lot of the lobbying organizations were fantastic for the same reason. So, but legislators depend on them a lot for the information because as we don't have, assistants or employees like many states do. So all the work falls on us to do this research. And so yeah, that was really important to me. And I learned really quickly. It was second week of session, first time that I had to come back here and I wouldn't say scold, but, tell a lobbyist that you're giving me incorrect information. And, and for them, they shouldn't be doing it because then they're losing credibility.
Right.
So it happens, not very often, but 95% of the time they were fantastic. There was a few that.
There's a few bad apples.
Yeah, exactly right.
But what you said is I think really important because what we've tried to do actually for a number of sessions is get legislators to come to us for exactly what you're talking about, for research. We have, not, a lot of bandwidth, but we have the bandwidth to help and do some research. And we've had legislators who have to introduce bills on the floor and, 24 hours beforehand said, hey, I need this information to introduce it, or I'm going to be in, a hearing for this. And we love that. We love it when you come to us and ask, because we want you to view us that way. Obviously, we have our perspective on things, and that. But that's great. It's great that you're taking advantage of that. I wish more legislators would. So thank you.
Well, one of the things I respected about that, Mark, was when I did come to you, you were honest about it. If there was a gray area, you didn't try to sway it. You just said, well, here, this is where we're at. This is what it's based on. Yeah. So you didn't just throw out your opinion. You backed everything up with facts.
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciated from you guys.
Thanks. Yeah, you won't. You won't get lies from us. You may disagree to your to your other point. That's okay. There's a point usually that we disagree with on something with a lot of legislators. It happens. Um, so you sponsored some bills last session. Out of the bills, how many did you sponsor?
I prime sponsored 4. I did drop one out early in session, so I had 3 bills that I prime sponsored. We got 2 of them through the House, 1 failed in the House, and then both of them ended up failing in the Senate. So I was 0 for 3. I teased, Representative Hawley, got a bill through. He's 18 years old. Like, I mean, an 18-year-old got a bill through, and I didn't get it through. But on that note, one of the bills I had, I thought was very good. We passed it, darn near unanimously through the House.
Wow.
And it went over to the Senate, and then died over there. And of course, I was upset about it. So I walked over to the Senate, and I grabbed one of the senators, like, "What? Why are you voting against this bill?" And he put his arm around me, and he says, "Don't think you can change the world the first session." Like, okay, well, I'll do my second session. So, and it was good advice, but there was some people that just had some minor issues, didn't think he was going to solve the problem, and like, okay, well, I'll fix that next time, and I'll bring it back again, and I am, that similar bill is going to be coming back this session, and that was was at the district convention and nominating convention. I listed off 5 things that I told my constituents that I'm going to get done while I'm in the legislature, and 4 of the 5, we got passed last session, and that was the one thing that didn't get fixed. So next session, I'm going to come back and give it a shot again.
Good. We like it when legislators hold true to their promises.
Yeah.
And I think truly saying, feel free to disagree, but the vast majority of the legislators here do that. They really want to come through for their constituents. They want to come through on their promises. There are always going to be some that don't. But I've been very impressed with the legislators here, and including you, in the way that you follow through, and it isn't just this vapid promise that goes away as soon as you sit in that seat. So thank you. So what was the hardest vote to take this past session? Which one had you kind of tied up in knots, or you weren't sure?
There was several votes that I knew no matter how I voted, I was going to catch up with some of it. Yeah, there's no right answer, so that's where you use your conscience on how you're going to vote on this. But I can pick out 2 bills that I think were maybe the hardest. The last bill of session, that we voted on at 3:00 in the morning on a Sunday morning, the OMB bill, because I don't think we got the bill in front of us until about 2:00 in the morning.
You want to explain to them what the bill was?
Oh, the OMB bill, it's the final bill of session typically, and kind of a negotiating tool where some of the stuff that maybe failed during the session will get tacked back on this bill, and but then it's also for the Office of Management and Budget. So it's a big bill. There's a lot of money in it, and there's a lot of projects in it. But when we got that bill, we had about 10 minutes from the time we received it to read I want to say it was an 80-page bill or something like that. So so just to be transparent and honest, what we did is there was about 10 or 12 of us just said, okay, you take pages 1 through 8. I'm going to take pages 9 through 12, and let's try to get through this thing. And if there's some concerns, let's bring them up on the floor debate. Yeah. So we all read through our sections, and then the floor debate, thankfully, was almost an hour. So we did have time to go through the majority of the pages and see, but there were a couple things in there that I didn't like. And I eventually ended up voting yes on it. Looking back, I probably should have voted no. And it was because of some of the stuff that was in there, which is why we got called back to special session, because they got sued, and then they had to come back to special session to fix it. And the good thing about that is we had the opportunity to vote on those things, a couple of them that I had concerns about that are in that bill individually, and I was able to vote against those parts that I didn't like. Right. So it was good, really good that it came back. That was a difficult one, and just the individual policy bill, that was the hardest one for me, was the free school lunch bill. I'm sure you guys remember that one. And of course, I'm a very compassionate guy. I have kids in the public school system. And the last thing that I want to do is have a kid go hungry.
Right.
There's, I mean, not a chance. However, when I'm looking at the logistics of it, I I know there's free and reduced lunch programs already out there.
Mhm.
I've asked to see the sheet that you have to fill out. It's not a complicated form to fill out. So I didn't think at the time it was needed. And then I even went farther and I asked some school administrators, I said, have you ever, if a kid comes up to the lunch line and has no money left in his account, do you deny that child a meal? And they said no.
No.
I said, okay, that's all I needed to know. So I ended up voting no on that bill, just knowing that nobody's going hungry.
Right.
There are programs out there already. And this, I think there was something like a $70 million price tag attached to this thing here. That's a lot of money.
That is, yes.
And I was thinking to myself too, like, what, you know, my family, we're blessed to the point where we can afford to feed our children. I realize that's not the issue with everybody, but why should I have somebody else paying to feed my children? And I mean, those are kind of some of the determining factors. And I got hit pretty hard on that one afterwards. But when I explain it, like I just explained it to you, you know, a lot of people didn't know that. They didn't know that they were, you know, not being denied lunches and such like that. So that was probably the most difficult policy vote that I made, you know, when, especially when the people are out there telling you that you're voting for your own raises, but you're not giving, you know, giving money to the kids. That's just not true, you know. So that was a tough one.
Yeah. And we have kind of the same thing where we'll support a bill or be against a bill, and we'll hear from our constituents, and why did you take that position? Don't you, you know, like this kind of bill? Don't you like kids? I thought you were defending the family and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's not an excuse, but it gets very complicated because things are thrown together into bills, and sometimes they're duplicate bills. They're trying to do the same thing, and one's really good, one's really bad. And just from the outside, it makes it difficult. And so I'm sure Mike's the same way. We encourage you to call us and ask and say, hey, what's going on with this? Or what do you think about this bill? Because we love to explain it and make sure that, you know, you understand the pros and cons and all the stuff going on in the background, because that is difficult. And that's not the stuff you're going to read in the media.
Correct.
Yeah. So we have elections coming up. Any idea, what do you think that the next legislature may look like? Is it going to be more conservative, more liberal? What kind of people do you think are going to be elected?
Well, that's something that I actually put more time and effort into than I probably should. Is I am tracking every race across the state.
Oh, wow.
And I have spoken with several of the candidates, not all of them, but several of them, and just not to try to influence them all, but just to introduce myself, kind of ask them what their positions are. Maybe if there's any advice I could offer them, I would do so. But I more or less just kind of want to get a feel, like you said, about where they're going to be at. And from what I've gathered, it sure looks like the Senate is definitely the needle's going to move to the right over there. I think they have 9 new senators over there, and from what I've seen and heard and visited with them, it sounds like a good majority of them are.
And they're already very conservative relative to past sessions, which we've seen. You may not have, but it has definitely shifted right. So, yeah, even further right. Be pretty neat. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I think the Senate's going to be at. The House, I think it didn't sway as much. And of course, there's still the general elections coming up, but I'm just basing this on who's likely to win in those districts.
Right.
And I think the House probably moved 3 or 4 seats, you know, to probably some more conservative candidate. And you know, it's hard to judge a new candidate until they actually get here and vote. You can just go off of by what the conversations that you've had with them or things you've heard and such like that. So I think the House is going to move a little bit, you know, needle will move a little bit to the right in the House too. And that's, of course, I could be completely wrong on all that assessment, but
we won't come back to you on this. It's okay.
I have spreadsheets of all the districts at the office, and just to kind of get an idea what, and you know, and it's preparatory work. Just what am I going to need to do to get some of this language passed that I have already drafted. So doesn't hurt to start too early.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, I'm glad that you're sort of scoping out what it's going to look like, because Unfortunately, I think you're probably the vast minority in that sort of thing, but it's great. And the other thing that Mike talked about really briefly was legislation in preparation for the 2025 session. And we talked about the different approaches to that. Some legislators wait until, just before session. Others start planning basically when we do, like a year plus before session starts. And you're saying that you've been planning things months and months in advance, right?
I believe I had my first bill drafted for this next session in October of last year, so
Oh,
almost a year
wow.
ago already.
Yeah.
And I got these, and some of these bills. Like I said, I have 7 bills drafted already, and we're 4 months, 5 months before session starts here yet. And the reason I got them drafted early so that I can share them with other legislators and say, hey, pick this apart for me.
Right.
Be a critic. Let me know what's good, what's bad, what we need to change to get this language into a form that we can actually get it passed through both chambers and have the governor sign it. So I've been, I can't tell you the amount of hours that I put into some of this legislation. And I feel a little bit bad for the Ledge Council already because I've already sent some of these things back to them 2, 3, 4 times. Say, nope, we got to redraft this one. And so yeah, just a lot of preparatory work has gone into these bills, and I know by the time that we get to session that I'll have these bills in the best form that they can possibly be in, so we don't have to mess around with changing them during session when things are nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. The last push, a month or two just beforehand, is just kind of insane.
Yeah.
Because we have 1,000 bills every session. And okay, folks like Mike own draft them well in advance, and there are others who do that, but a lot wait until just beforehand. And it's just avalanche on poor staff.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get the language right and everything. So it's a cadre of attorneys trying to figure this out. Yeah.
And it's challenging for them, especially like the 2023 session. We had, I think it was with 38 new legislators. So,
Yeah.
and new legislators can't have bills drafted until after, I believe it's December 1st or December 3rd or something like that. So if you have 38 legislators putting in, requesting bill drafts, and they only have a month to prepare them,
Mhm.
I mean, they are slammed in the month of December. Now, that's another reason why I thought I'd get at it early here. So when the new legislators come in and after December 1st start drafting them, it's a little bit less workload. So trying to help where I can.
I'm sure they appreciate it. I'm sure they appreciate it. So, just kind of wrapping things up, is there anything you'd like the people of North Dakota to know about you, about the legislative process, anything like that? Or do you have any advice of how they might become more involved? I mean, what works in order to get you to listen? I know that there's a lot going on, so what will move the needle? How do they contact you? What's the best way to do that? There, I just threw a whole bunch of questions at you.
Well, I'll start with the most recent question there is how do you contact me? All of our personal information is on our North Dakota Legislative NDLEGIS website. And, you know, I've talked to legislators from other states that can't believe that we have our personal cell phone numbers, on the legislative site, and that just blows their mind.
Yeah.
So, we're very transparent when it comes to that. And I don't know any legislators that are not willing to talk with constituents. So it's very easy in North Dakota to get a hold of your legislators and discuss. If you ask some advice I can give, I would say, and I learned this a lot in this last session too, just how I react. If you approach a legislator and you're kind and you're not combative, and you want to sit down and actually have a conversation and come loaded with facts and such, the legislator is going to be a lot more receptive.
Right.
And you have a way better chance of getting your point across and maybe swaying their vote. But I also encourage them, if you don't get your way, listen to the reasoning behind why they're going to vote the way they're going to. They usually don't just say it's to make you mad. That's not the
Right.
answer they're going to give you. They're going to give you a detailed reason of why they're going to support or vote against the bill that they're questioning. So I would strongly encourage, just be civil. It's going to, not for my benefit, but for your benefit.
Yeah.
And as a lobbyist, I know that holds true also. The last one that you mentioned was how to get involved. And I've been encouraging this for years and years, but especially with term limits now, when we're limited to 2 terms, we need to build a bench.
Yeah.
And we can't wait until someone's term limited out to decide, hey, who's going to run. We need people to get involved now.
Yeah.
So for when the time comes up when that person is when the legislator is term limited out, there are people ready to step up. And I would strongly encourage people not only just to get involved, but to also learn. And I wish there was some sort of mentorship program or something where the legislators would have people who are interested. They could come in. And, it's good that they can sit on the floor with us and such, but even it doesn't have to be classes, but it just advice sessions or something like that. I wish more people would reach out for that. Because we do need people to start getting interested now. Because when I was doing some of my research on the elections, I don't remember the numbers right now. It's been a few months since I looked at it, but I think there was something like 27 uncontested races.
Yeah,
that tells me that there's not enough people out there that are. I mean, if it was up to me, every single race would be contested. I think it makes a better legislator, and you're going to be honest with your constituents. You're going to send a message of what you're going to do if you're elected. And so I strongly encourage people to get involved. Just talk to your district chairman. And this is both sides of the aisle, Democrat, Republican, whatever it is. Get involved, learn the process. So when it is your time to come in, you're ready for it.
Yeah. That's good. You were talking about having, the bench strength and so on. And one of the things that we try and do as an organization is provide some continuity over time, because a legislator may be here for a couple sessions. We're here every session. And to the extent that we can give you information on that and provide some, okay, this is what happened 2 sessions ago, so this may not be the way you want to approach this bill or so on. We try and do that in a unbiased fashion, in a fashion that will help you. So yeah, we take that very seriously too, because we know that there are impediments and challenges with that. All right. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Once again, we're really glad you're in the legislature, and appreciate all your votes that are pro-family and pro-life. And look forward to working with you in 2025, Mike.
Well, likewise, I look forward to working with you again, and I really appreciate, like I said before, the resources you provide us with and the services that you provide. And it's one load off my back, to have organizations like yours that I can go to if I have questions. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and stay tuned. We will have more legislator interviews coming up in the months to come.